future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Hey everyone, good evening and greetings and salutations everyone. Let's try this again. I got the right button. Oh, there we go. I'm the engineer here too, you know. You have joined Dr. Judy, WTF, which is here on the UBN Radio Network here at the heart of Hollywood. And WTF, for those of you that are new, and thank you so much, is What the Freud. And this is a call-in show. We're going to be dealing with hole in the soul, celebrities that have had a gigantic hole in the soul, and you'll know what that means in a moment or two. And if you want to call in and talk about a celebrity that's impacted you in one way or the other, we'd love to hear you and get on air. Our number is area code 323-843-2826. That's 323-843-2826. I'm your host, Walt Lusk, and of course we have Dr. Judy Rosenberg, world-renowned author, in the studio. You know what? That requires another, good gracious, what's going on with this board today? There we go, the audience. You know, their cue cards aren't working too well today. You can catch us on Stitcher, iTunes, here at UBN Radio Network, and soon to be iHeartRadio. Keep our fingers crossed. Dr. Judy, of course, is the founder of the Psychological Healing Center with offices in Sherman Oaks and Beverly Hills, and now the author of a book entitled Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect, which we're going to talk a lot about next year in a bigger way, if you will. So the reviews are coming in like crazy for the book, and all three right now are 5 stars out of 5 stars. And this one states, the book is incredibly eye-opening. I'm pretty sure 10 out of 10 could benefit from reading it. Dr. Judy Rosenberg explains a particular complicated topic in a very easy and simple way. She explains many of the issues we face today that can be traced back to early childhood development. The ability to recognize this in one's own life can be nothing short of life-changing. A definite must-read.
First of all, I want to thank the person who wrote that. It's really, really very sweet. And you know, I was thinking we have that title called WTF with the Freud in one episode. Let's do an episode on Freud. We have yet to do that.
We do, and in relation to today, I have a surprise to you about Dr. Freud. He's mentioned in the group of celebrities that just didn't quite make it in one way or another.
Wow, I had no idea. You knew.
I do
you
research.
Told me that there was a surprise.
I do research.
Well, look, one of the things that's always been so astoundingly sad to me is that some of the greatest people on our planet, some of the most gifted people on our planet, don't really make it for a long time. They sputter out really soon, and that's why they're called stars. Stars burn out. And so tonight, one of my favorite bands, actually, Stone Temple Pilot.
That's TP, Stone Temple Pilots. We're going to shrink that tune.
We sure are. We're going to shrink I'll just tell you in advance because it's just such a cool song. I love the song. It's called Plush. We're going to be shrinking Plush tonight in memory of Scott Weiland. Weiland, am I pronouncing it correctly?
You know what?
I never.
Weiland, yes,
Weiland,
W-E-I-L-E-N-D.
Who unfortunately passed away about a week ago now.
At age 48.
Yeah, it's too young.
Yeah.
And so talented. And so what is going on here? WTF is going on here. And so we're going to explore that tonight. The hole in the soul phenomenon, which I want to get into a little bit more because it's a topic that I bring up a lot in my treatment and a lot in the book. And here, just so that you know, it really is real.
It's a real book. You can get it at Amazon, soon to be Nook, and it's in paperback and, of course, in digital form. A perfect stocking stuffer.
So I just want to refer right now to the book because I talk about the hole in the soul, and so I want to refer to another band by the name of Flaws by Bastille, and the song Flaws alludes to the hole in the soul. There's a hole in my soul. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? And just a little passage from my book to give you a sense of what I mean by the hole in the soul. As we pass down our flaws, person to person, generation to generation, the hole in the soul grows larger and deeper. Throughout our lives, we attempt to fill this hole with alcohol, drugs, sex, power, money, fame, and relationships, and more. But instead of fulfillment, our fruitless attempt to fill the hole creates anxiety, depression, isolation, regret, loneliness, anguish, despair, misery, and torment. So what I'm referring to here is that I'm going to go back to attachment theory. What do we need to form a healthy human psyche? We need eye contact, skin contact, breastfeeding. We need a mother and a father that are available to nurture us, primarily a primary caretaker, usually mother, who will attune to us and help us to emotionally regulate. So when we don't get these emotional ingredients, what happens to us is we develop what I'm referring to, what Walt and I are referring to here as the hole in the soul. And that's that place of emptiness. And apparently a lot of people talk about it because it's showing up in music and other works of poetry and books and so on. So tonight we're going to really try to reconstruct famous people, musicians, other people who have died as a result of having unmet needs. And sometimes what I do in my treatment is I play psychological detective because I don't know what happened to people at age 0 to 3 years of life. So, I ask some pretty important questions to trace back their ability, not their ability, but their attachment to their primary caregiver. Questions like, were you born on time, or were you placed in an incubator? Was your mother available to you, or were you placed right away into daycare, childcare? Did your parents get along? Did you come from a warm, nurturing, connected environment? Were there other stressors like money issues? Was anybody molested sexually? Was anybody put down verbally? Was anybody beaten, neglected, or smothered? So that about covers it, okay? So I can go on and on, but that covers the big points. So if any one of those injuries or emotional bruises occurred during the first few years of life, then we will have reactions to that.
Yes, we will. And we talk about the fact that childhood is a hostage situation.
Walt's favorite
One of my favorite lines, yes.
Right. And the reason
which is true.
And it is true, because where are you going to go? If mom's beating you, or dad's an alcoholic, or things are not going well for you, what are you going to do? Pack up your bags and leave?
Come on, how many of you guys have run away and you know what? You didn't get too far, or were gone not too long, and you came back.
Had to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of cold out there.
My joke is I was born in North Carolina, and at age 5 I was kidnapped and brought to California. So, I had to go along for the ride.
And I met your mom, and she's so sweet. Yeah. So you're one of the lucky people.
I am.
Very sweet.
I am very lucky.
You have a very sweet mom.
Talking about the hole in the soul, I wanted to start with what's called celebrity overdoses. Deaths highlight prescription drug epidemic. I mean, people go, well, heroin or cocaine or even alcohol, right, which is just around the corner. But right now there is a very large drug cartel that is pushing a lot of drugs, and it happens to be legal. The drug companies. On February 11th of 2012, on the eve of the Grammy Awards, singer Whitney Houston fell asleep in a bathtub in Beverly Hills Hilton Hotel in Los Angeles and never woke up. She had a cocktail of cocaine and prescription drugs before taking her final breath. She had a plethora of prescription medication bottles all over the hotel room. There were 12 of them in total. Another, Heath Ledger, Brittany Murphy, Anna Nicole Smith, Michael Jackson. We're going to talk about Michael Jackson. The deaths reflect a larger wave of prescription drug abuse across the United States. What illicit drugs like crack cocaine and ecstasy were in the 90s and the early 2000s, prescription medications are now for the millennial generation. Recent studies show, and recent 2010, 2.4 million people aged 12 or older began using drug prescriptions to the extent that 6,600 people a day that began to be starting using prescription drugs.
6,600
a day.
And who's prescribing these?
Well,
meds?
Of course, doctors are, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the overdose from prescription drug medications has tripled in the past decade, up to 15,000 or more than the toll of cocaine and heroin combined.
So really our legal drugs are causing more chaos and
Yes,
damage
absolutely.
than our illegal drugs.
Huge.
And let's go back to the cause. And if you don't mind putting the mind map up.
I don't. And those of you that are listening to it, you can see it at drjudywtf.com.
So tell me when it's up.
It's up.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So the top row represents our past, the middle row represents our present, and the bottom row represents where we would like to morph and paradigm shift into. So if you look at the top half, you will see panel 1, which is the round light occluded by the shadows. And that's the beginning of the hole in the soul. And the light is how we enter the world. We enter the world undamaged for the most part, unless we have something horrific happen to us in utero, or unless something happens during the birthing process. We pretty much enter the world a blank slate. And then what happens is that we get shadowed over by normally unfortunately our caretakers. And why is this so? Because they also got shadowed over by their caretakers.
Yes.
And so this is a multi-generational
issue.
transmission process. And so when people develop this hole in the soul and they have reactions like anxiety and depression, they then encode this entire sense of illness or disease, as I called it, into the fiber of their being. And then this gets encoded in a kind of a negative core belief is what I call it, a core belief like I'm not good enough, or I'm not special, or I'm not lovable, or I'm not capable, or whatever is that interpretation, because the child always interprets that I did something wrong, I'm bad. So once this happens, life happens and life stresses us out. And in the case of celebrities, what happens to them is during the process of becoming a celebrity, of course, they're idealized and the pressure mounts. And so at a certain point, their inner world starts to crumble, especially if they didn't have those emotional ingredients. And so then they start to shore up that inner world with drugs, sex, and rock and roll. And so when you look at people who use these drugs, think about it as self-medicating. They're really trying to soothe themselves. They're trying to manage their emotions that should have been managed by the primary caregiver or the caregivers.
Well, yes. And to finish up this article really, really quick, is that what they're saying is everyone is 1 degree away from someone with a substance abuse disorder. And again, the substance abuse disorder could be prescription drugs. Now, the surprise I mentioned is, I wanted to mention this before, make sure we had space, is Sigmund Freud came up in my research.
You knew I'd like that.
Oh,
right,
absolutely.
Walt?
I mean, it's what the Freud, right?
The Freud.
This is not a case of drug abuse, but the father of psychoanalysis died of morphine overdose. He was suffering from cancer of the jaw and wanted his closest friend and doctor to administer him an overdose. For him, euthanasia was the only option left before the unbearable pain he was suffering.
That's so sad. And, before that, he was a smoker. So
Well, yeah, and he
cancer of
did
the
use a pipe
jaw,
too, didn't he?
I think he
Yeah, he
used
did.
a cigar. Isn't a cigar only a cigar unless it's not? Okay, so in Freud's case, I think he probably contracted cancer of the jaw from smoking, and so literally he was using the drug of nicotine, right?
Yes, he was.
To medicate himself, and then when he used the drug nicotine to medicate himself, he threw his entire mood out of joint, and then he needed to, therefore, he contracted cancer.
Yes,
apparently,
he did. He caught cancer.
And now that he not now, but then when he contracted cancer, he couldn't bear the pain of it, and then needed to exit stage left in a very mild manner. I think morphine would be probably one of the smoothest rides out, right?
I have no idea.
I have no idea.
I mean,
never ridden out in
I'm
morphine.
afraid I haven't done that road.
In morphine,
I'm afraid it's not my thing. So
okay,
yeah.
okay.
So anyway, that's Dr. Freud. We thought we'd start with Scott Weiland, since you mentioned it, and we're going to do his song. He's, of course, the one of the former Stone Temple Pilots singer, and he died at age 48. He passed away in his sleep in a tour bus. He arrested the bassist, who was suspected of possession of cocaine. His life is often marred by tribulation. He battled with bipolar disorder. And in 2011 memoir, Not Dead and Not for Sale, he revealed a big muscular guy in high school senior sexually assaulted him when he was 12. And he also was experimenting with alcohol and drugs, and he just publicly battled addiction. And you know what? And he was convicted of buying crack cocaine in 1995 and had 2 DUIs in 03 and 07.
Well, crack cocaine is an upper, right? What else was he using?
Alcohol.
So he went up and down.
He went up and down, and
which goes with the bipolar, doesn't it?
Okay. Yes.
The
He was
self-medicating.
self-medicating.
Goes with the bipolar.
Yeah.
Right.
He's self-medicating.
So one of the things that you talked about was that he was bullied at age 12.
And sexually abused.
And sexually abused, which if we're playing psychological detective here, Walt, what we can know about that is that the parents must not have been very vigilant in taking care of this young man.
Yes.
Would you say?
Yes.
Okay, so if he was not having pillars around him of protection, then it would have been very difficult for him to really feel safe in his world. So the hole in the soul comes as a result of being infiltrated physically, infiltrated emotionally.
Yes. So that was Scott. Now, wanted to touch on Lamar Odom.
Okay.
He is obviously in the news, connected to the Kardashians. We had to throw the Kardashians in somewhere here. He's obviously very alive, but he almost died. And in fact,
how is he doing? Do you have an idea?
You know what? I don't know. I know he's doing better because
I did an interview on him with the Insider about a month ago, and at the time, Chloe rushed to his side
with her film crew, which has been part of the problem.
Yeah,
I dropped everything and brought a film crew.
Right, and so I think that he has such a deep hole in the soul. He lost a child.
Yes.
So tell
there's
us
a little bit here,
and
rumors of circulating about in August of 2013, just a little bit of background about his relationship with Chloe, and he had some extramarital affairs, and that was in August.
Wasn't he pretty much doing the entire what was that, the Las Vegas whorehouse that he attended?
No, you're getting ahead of us.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll slow down. Okay, go ahead.
This is August of 2013.
Oh, okay.
Okay, he had extramarital affairs and or reports of drug abuse. That was, and then also he was arrested for suspicion of driving under the influence. And then Chloe filed for divorce in December of 2013, and they signed divorce papers in July of 2015. But my understanding is it hasn't been released by a judge yet, so technically they're still married. Now, in June of 2014, he experienced another loss. It was a passing of his close friend, James, and I'm going to butcher his last name, Sanguathai, who died of bacterial skin infection caused by chronic intravenous drug use. Those are the kind of friends you want, right?
Well, I just want to make a point about that when people don't have that safe haven,
yes,
then they are always feeling vulnerable, and they cannot regulate their mood, and their boundaries are horrible. So as a result of that, the boundaries go, and that people can come into people's lives and influence them in ways that end up in a very, very deadly situation. In this case, what was this kind of what is it?
Well, his friend died.
Eating?
No, it was a bacterial skin infection caused by chronic intravenous drug use.
Oh, okay. Bacterial skin infection.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the infection got totally crazy. Probably staph infection or MRSA, what's called MRSA, is pretty crazy.
Okay.
Then in October, here it is, this year, he was found unresponsive in a Nevada brothel where he'd been in for 4 days and taking sexual herbal stimulants and in a coma, and cocaine was found in his system as well. So there's your another stimulus, cocaine.
So there's sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and
Yep.
that the sex is just another kind of drug. We have had shows where we talk about sex and love addiction.
And porn in relationships.
Porn, and so this is all part of that self-medicating need to have an upper experience, because if you're in a depression, if you're in that hole in the soul, then you need to dig yourself out. And the quickest way to dig yourself out is obviously by engaging in multiple sexual orgasmic behaviors, but then that sputters out, pun intended, okay? And then you need another dose of something else, and then you do cocaine, and that doesn't last as long as the person wants it to, and then maybe takes them too high, and then they have to balance it out with the alcohol, and it's just a big
Well, no, actually,
mess.
what you need is Ryder Cherry and Monica Monroe, which were the Ryder Cherry and Monica Monroe. They were the two ladies he was visiting
okay, I didn't know that.
at the Love Ranch in Nevada, and his bill came to $79,000 for a 4-day spree, which is about $20,000 a day, just in case you didn't know. And
so think about it, folks. The prevention to all of this is just basic breastfeeding, right? Staying at home.
well, breastfeeding. Maybe he was trying that too. You know,
maybe he was.
Don't know.
But, the basic prevention is, if you're parents, how about stay at home for the first couple of years or so of life and give your children all the emotional ingredients they want, because they need, and then they can basically save money later. They can
it's a good it's a good investment.
Not that $79,000 was a big chunk of change for Lamar. It was probably
but remember, after his
him.
Episode with that, right? He almost died. Had to be helicoptered to a hospital, and then all the medical stuff that came with it. And of course, I said, Chloe dropped everything and brought a huge film crew, and was in the hospital with the film crew and Chloe and everybody else. And I've read other stuff. He was really tired of the fact that I understand he'd be on the phone talking to Chloe while she's on the show, and he says, "Don't put this on the show." "Okay, I won't while it's on the show."
Wow.
So she had no boundaries at all and no respect.
Issue when you don't have boundaries when your parents don't give you boundaries, then you don't have boundaries, and so then you will be overexposed. When we don't have boundaries, we will be subject to letting in a lot of dis-ease and a lot of disease.
And lastly, later revealed that he had taken a speedball, which is an intravenous injection of cocaine and heroin with methadone.
I think cocaine and heroin, that combo has been super popular lately, hasn't it?
It's just speedballs. Right. I'm reading more about speedballs.
Speedball.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's Lamar. So we wish him all the best. We really do.
I'd like to know. Do you know? What his status is
I didn't
today?
get a chance to research it. I got a little crazy.
I haven't researched
but
it
but he's still around.
Okay.
At 5'10" and basketball player.
Wait, 5'10"? You mean
6'10"? Excuse me, 6'10".
That sounds more like
6'10".
Okay.
I tell people I'm 5'12". Excuse me. Next, we want to touch on someone who I personally believe gave drug addiction a gigantically whole new meaning, and that is Michael Jackson. At age 50 in June of 2009, he passed. And there were lots of things around it. He had his own physician who was not versed in the drug of choice, which was propofol, and that's spelled Propofol.
Well, here's the thing, Walt, is when people have that kind of money, they have a lot of influence over their physicians. And
yes, they do.
Not all physicians are going to be ethical, and some will overprescribe just because they're paid well.
They can.
And so it's really, really sad, because then tons and tons of containers of medication end up in the hands of people who are addicts and will misuse the drug.
Yes, they will. So, in this instance, just for those who don't know what propofol was, and Michael Jackson was warned by a couple of nurses that, this is going to come, it's going to bite you. It is used by anesthesiologists on patients undergoing surgery in a hospital setting.
Wait, say that again?
Propofol is used by anesthesiologists on their patients undergoing surgery in a hospital setting.
So this is a heavy
this
duty.
is, I mean,
this is as heavy as it gets.
This, as I said,
right.
he's giving
they're
drug
under
addiction,
now. Right.
drug addiction a brand new meaning because it's well regarded for its quick and deep sedation. It works in about 40 seconds.
Wow.
I mean, you're talking about being out.
Wait,
hello.
But isn't that intravenous?
Yes.
Okay. So,
absolutely.
Okay. So what are you saying? Are you saying that there's a pill form of this?
No,
or
it was being administered by his doctor who.
To him.
Yeah, Conrad
on
Murray.
A regular basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
To numb his pain, whatever that was.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things we do know about Michael Jackson is that he had quite an abusive father. Do you have any information?
Well, he had a very
about
abusive father. They talk about all we're going to do is he had a boatload of plastic surgery, and and no secret, of course. My view on that is he went too far, of course, but I think he just was trying to get away from looking like his dad as much as possible. I mean, that's my take.
But wasn't his father brutal on him?
Very
Wasn't
much.
he
He was
very
abusive.
Critical
very
and
abusive.
And,
yes.
Again, when we do our history, we have to take a look and see what the injuries were from the first few years of life. And so in the case of Michael Jackson, we can put together the pieces in the psychological detective work and trace back that his core belief, his negative core belief about himself, whatever that was definitely ingrained into him by his family of origin. And I don't know. Do you know anything about his mother, Walt?
She's been taking care of the kids and the grandkids, and the issue was with his dad.
I see.
Mostly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So in order to really trace back where the cause of this is coming from, you have to look into the blueprint. And the blueprint is always mother and father. And so if the blueprint is damaging, then it's no wonder that the children are damaged. And so wouldn't you say, Walt, that part of being in Hollywood is gaining some narcissistic
of course, it's seeing stroking.
Pleasures,
yeah,
strokings.
we're gonna talk a little bit about, which is an extreme example again of Judy Garland. We're gonna get there next.
Okay.
But I mean, in his system was an antidepressant, a sleep aid, stuff to treat panic attacks, stuff to treat his skin condition because he had a skin condition that was kind of going white, a muscle relaxant, stuff for an enlarged prostate, and a couple of antibiotics. So I mean, he had the list was a dozen different things in his system in addition to propofol.
We're talking about still with
Michael Jackson.
Okay,
Absolutely.
and you know what's so crazy?
And every
is
single one of these is a prescription drug. It's not like he was doing heroin or cocaine. I mean, these were all prescribed by a doctor.
And you know what's really crazy and insane to me is that the doctor never sent him off for rehab or never called him on the fact that he needed more help than just pills.
Yes.
And
now,
the pills were not helpful. They were actually killing him.
Well, he actually had diminished lung capacity, which would be kind of tough if you're a singer, for goodness sakes, and chronic lung infection, which is probably why he was on a couple of antibiotics. Propofol impairs one's lung function and puts him at greater risk for respiratory and cardiac-related complications while under sedation.
So it's amazing that he lived till age 50.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean, with the amount of medication that he was using, it seems like he
had a lot of pain. Now, in all fairness, he did a Pepsi commercial a few years prior. I can't remember the year. I don't think I have it. No, I don't.
Was the pain from all the dancing that he did?
No, he did a Pepsi commercial and his hair got on fire.
Oh, okay.
He had stuff in his hair, and it got his hair on fire, and he burned his scalp, and he was in still a lot of pain from his hair on fire, and so that was probably some of the pain stuff. But propofol is really going overboard like crazy. Yeah, 1984, excuse me. Where special effects exploded and burned his scalp. He was filming a Pepsi commercial in 1984. So he was still in pain from that. But I know for a fact he was trying to modify. This is my take, even though I'm not the doctor, that he was trying to modify his look from as far away from his father as he could, and he had a lot of pain from all that, and wanted to be sedated because he couldn't sleep and had nightmares and was anxious. And
I'm reminded of an interview I did years ago, Walt, with Animal Planet. And,
Animal Planet, yeah.
And there was a gentleman on Animal Planet who had morphed himself into a tiger, and he literally made himself look like a tiger. He put implants in for whiskers, and he put fangs into his gums, and it was quite something. Anyway, he passed away, I think, in the recent last few years. And the point I'm making is something that you brought up, which is he wanted to be as far away from his family of origin as possible. So when I shrunk his situation, which Animal Planet asked me to do, I was talking about how he really didn't even want to be a member of the human race any longer. That's how bad his panel 1, 2, and 3 must have been, meaning his family of origin, his past, that he just decided to opt out and go with the animal world. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I could see what you're saying, that Michael Jackson wanted to get as far away from his father and the family of origin.
Well, also he had issues,
that.
and he was a pedophilia. He hang out with little boys and give them milk, which I think was something in terms of I don't know exactly. I don't even want to postulate, but he paid millions of dollars. To keep kids quiet, which subsequent to his death, they came out.
And imagine the parents who allowed their children to get with Michael Jackson.
Well, they probably didn't know initially.
Maybe they didn't know initially.
Yeah.
And imagine what Michael went through in his family of origin.
Absolutely.
And so, playing detective here again,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
I believe that there were some major issues of sexual molestation on the part of what was going on in his family of origin, although I don't know that for sure. I'd have to do more research on that. But what my point is that when people have symptoms like this, the symptoms are coming from a cause. And although we don't like to say this because it's a taboo situation, but the cause is always our family of origin. Whether we like it or not, we're blueprinted by our parents. And I did not, by the way, say fault. So, Walt, you know that a lot of what I deal with in the therapeutic environment is people say, you're not blaming the parents, are you? And so I'm saying, look, if your parents, please do the best that you can to clean up your psychological issues so that you don't spread your, quote, psychoviruses to the next generation. And so parents are the cause, but they're also not the fault because their parents were the cause and their parents were the cause. So this is not a blame game. This is simply
they came by it honestly.
Holding people responsible so that they can clean up to become better people so that our next generation can be a healthier human race.
Yes, and so I thought if we were going to do a story on King of the Pop, I thought, of course, the other end of the deal is Elvis Presley. Now, Elvis Presley abused prescription drugs absolutely huge. He was under the impression that if a doctor prescribed it, it was okay for me to take it.
Well, I think that a lot of people think that because, we honor our doctors. And so I know as a person with a PhD after my name, I hold a lot of power. So I better do my power holding responsibly and think before I speak, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So, and the point is, though, and this came across in others, if one is good, two just might be better. And
You're
if
talking about
prescription drugs.
Right, you were talking about, what's his name?
Elvis Presley,
right? That he had this impression. The doctor prescribed it to him.
So if two are good, maybe a handful is even better.
Sure.
I mean, he had thousands and thousands of drugs just hidden.
Okay.
And so he was just taking too many drugs. And when they did an autopsy, he died in August of 1977, August 16th, 1977. And a lot of us know where we were then. They found 14 different drugs in his system, 10 of them in significant quantity.
Were they uppers or were they downers?
Yes.
Yes, uppers and downers. Okay. So
He had
which
99
was
prescriptions.
he
His
using?
doctor, which was his personal doctor because he had to babysit him like crazy and just protect his license, let alone his patient, had found that Elvis had 199 prescriptions totaling more than 10,000 doses of sedatives, amphetamines, and narcotics in the first 8 months of 1977, the year he died.
Wow.
10,000 doses.
Wow.
Okay, I mean, that's more than a handful.
So,
okay?
again, what age did he die at? Do you have that fact in front
Goodness
of
gracious,
you?
I don't have it on top of my, I think
He wasn't old.
48 or something. I can't remember. It's not here. But he was taking both uppers and downers, right? In 69, he was making a month-long visits to the International Hotel in Las Vegas where he would give 2 live performances nightly. So he needed amphetamines before the show and tranquilizers after.
Wait, amphetamines to bring him up,
and then tranquilizers
perform,
to bring
and
him
then
down.
the balance. Okay, and so back to attachment theory. Okay, here's a pop quiz for you, Walt. Okay, so what did the primary caregiver not do that could have been most likely?
Well, again,
was
we've
the
talked about it
cause
here,
of
right?
This need for
give
him to
give him attachment.
give him attachment. What the primary caregiver wasn't doing was helping to soothe her child.
And I don't know a whole
calm her
lot about his
child down.
childhood.
I don't either,
Yeah, I'm
but
not a
we're
big-
conjecturing.
See.
This thing has
We're a psychological detective.
That's what
Yeah.
what we do is we
Yeah.
have to take a look at the symptoms and then see where what the cause was of those symptoms.
Yes, absolutely. And and then of course after Priscilla left him in 1971, okay, he died in 77. He became more erratic and spent more and more time in a chemical fog, which became a lot more apparent. He would cancel shows. He would be semi-comatose. He had challenges with arthritis, so he was taking stuff for that. His problem, he said, is he felt that by getting it from a doctor, he wasn't the common everyday junkie getting something off the street.
Which is such an incredible
Well, it's justification.
Right? People think that when they're getting drugs off the street, then they're addicts. But if they're getting prescription drugs, then they're just obeying their doctor.
It's okay.
But it's all the same thing in the system. And let's just be real. Whether it's off the street or in a bottle, in a prescription bottle, it could still kill you.
Well, and
the body doesn't know, oh, that drug came off the street, but this one came from a doctor, so that's the better drug, and that's the one that's going to make me feel better. Just doesn't work that way.
And it's okay
folks.
to take.
Right.
And Elvis was, I mean, he would go to Vegas, and of course his doctor was licensed in Tennessee, so he'd go to Vegas and he'd need stuff, and he just, he had to have it. And so he'd find another doctor, and then, it just got, just added insult to injury.
So the doctors were multi-prescribing.
Yeah, they're
right?
multi-prescribing,
From
and one
different
didn't,
states,
and one didn't know what the other was doing for a
communicating.
while. Yeah,
Got
then
it.
his doctor finally figured it out. Right?
Got it.
He actually had one of the companies make a placebo, which the pill looked exactly the same as the pill he was taking, and maybe like a minute dose. He got a bunch of them just because they were counterfeit pills, he called them, placebos, because Elvis wanted to take these pills. And he knew this guy, some of it was,
Well, that was at
self-soothing.
least clever.
Yes, I
right?
thought it was very, very clever. It
Yeah.
took him a long time to convince this
Who?
particular drug company.
Oh, very
Yeah, who's
interesting.
his doctor? Doctor was Dr. Nicopoulos, Nichopoulos, Nichopoulos.
And that was the one in
Tennessee.
Yeah.
So he gave him counterfeit pills. But he was suffering from glaucoma, high blood pressure, liver damage, enlarged colon. And, ailments were aggravated, not caused by the drug abuse. He didn't have any major heart problems, at least initially. So between 75 and 77, he'd prescribed 19,000 doses of drugs.
19,000?
Yes,
doses
between
of
2
drugs?
years, 19,000 doses of drugs.
How many pounds is that?
I don't know. It's that's 40 doses of sedatives, amphetamines, and narcotics a day, all in Elvis's name.
And it's really, really hard to confront people who use prescription drugs because they really, really believe that they're needing these drugs because it's doctor prescribed.
Yes, absolutely.
And so it's real different when people bottom out on other drugs and end up in throwing up on the sidewalk or Like we had our guest Joel last week.
Yes.
Who talked about his recovery from drugs, and he had to hit rock bottom. He had to hit bottom several times before he became sober. And people who use prescription drugs don't look at themselves like they're drug addicts. They don't perceive themselves the same way as people who've bottomed out on alcohol or other drugs.
And again, as I'm saying, there's an epidemic even today, more so with drugs. And we've only got about we got a few minutes, but I wanted to touch on this one. This one was really interesting to me in the music world. There are two people that, and you can argue with Rush, with a group called Rush, but there were two drummers that were mentioned that are just phenomenal drummers. One is Keith Moon of The Who, and the other is John Bonham of Led Zeppelin, who many feel was the best drummer there ever was. I actually went to a concert last summer with his son, Jason Bonham, who was a drummer as well, who shared his experience a little bit. But Keith Moon died in 1978 at age 37, and he pushed the limit. I mean, he always pushed things too far. He was one of a kind, and style behind the drum kit, but his other irreverence was over-the-top way of life. I mean, he just pushed things way to the limit. And he joined Who. It was nothing short of perfect because he worked amazingly well with the bassist who died of drug or dose later in life. And it was John Entwistle. And he himself had a rhythm section that with the range of an orchestra. So, I mean, this guy was a phenomenal drummer. And he never was going to grow old gracefully, said his manager. I don't think he was destined to make old bones. So he wasn't called Moon the Loon for nothing, okay? So he died night after night of partying in a lifetime of testing the limits. He died of overdose of pills that were intended to combat alcoholism. So again, it was a sedative, and he took nearly a third of his 100-pill prescription a lot sooner than he should have. And as Pete Townsend said, it was a very silly mistake. But again, he pushed everything to the limit, and that's what happened. Now, the other drummer was John Bonham, and they were working on their album in 1980 when he died in September, and he had 40 shots of alcohol. And 40 shots of alcohol. That's just a boatload. No, he was having issues,
to survive.
And it was in his system, and obviously that was too much for him, and he choked in his own vomit. Oh, very much so.
Oh, yeah.
But what's interesting about this is Robert Plant was, of course, another major member of Led Zeppelin, and he describes John's frame of mind the day they drove to their last rehearsal together. Now, remember, this is John Bonham, who then and now, of course, is one of the greatest drummers in the world, right? This is Jimmy Page, Robert Plant. On the very last day of his life, as we drove to the rehearsal, he was not quite as happy as he could have been. He said, I've had it with playing the drums. Everybody plays better than me, quote. We were driving in the car, and he pulled off the sun visor and threw it out the window. As he was talking to me, he said, I'll tell you what, when we get to rehearsal, you play the drums and I'll sing. And that was our last rehearsal. Okay? Here's a guy that was one of the most amazing bands, was an amazing drummer. He was revered by everybody, was the heartbeat of the group, and after that, the group pooped out because that was it.
Walt,
and he didn't believe it. It was his core belief.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's his core belief.
Negative core belief. No matter how beautiful, no matter how talented, no matter how anything, the negative core belief will crack the lens of self-perception and have him believe that
this guy was at the peak of his success, peak of his fame.
Right.
You know, I mean, couldn't go anywhere because he was too famous. Powered down 40 shots of vodka. They put him to bed, and he never woke up.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty amazing.
So this is a call-in show. I think it's too late to call
in. It is
in.
too late.
Yeah?
We've only got about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
So
we're doing the.
We're gonna shrink the tune, but you know we can continue this if you want. We've got Judy Garland and a whole plethora of other folks.
Go for it.
No, we don't have time.
Oh.
Yeah, we can talk about Judy Garland, who was amazing. She basically blamed the whole the studio system, MGM, for ruining her life. Because from age 13 on, she was kind of a slave to them, so she claimed. We haven't talked about Robin Williams. We haven't. Philip Seymour Hoffman died of heroin overdose, which and he was 7 days away from finishing the second half of the Mockingbird Hunger Games series movies, and it was said by one, heroin was his best friend. He was found in a needle in his arm in the bathroom by himself. And he had a lot of heroin lying around the place that he was probably saving for another rainy day. Anyway, so at another time, maybe we can continue this. But we're out of time and have to shrink our song. So our song is by Stone Temple Pilots, and of course it's called Plush. So I'm going to read the lyrics, and then Dr. Judy's going to interpret it. And I feel that time a wasted go. So where you going tomorrow? And I see that these are lies to come. Would you even care?
Well, it's pretty convoluted, but I'll give this a shot, okay? So I think that when people have that hole in the soul, they feel that life's kind of a waste and they don't really have a direction. And I see that these are lies to come. Would you even care? So one of the things that I talk about a lot is the lies that we buy into. So somewhere in there, this person is aware that that life consists of a bunch of lies that perhaps he bought into and is wondering if even anybody cares to know the truth.
Yeah. And I feel it. Where you going for tomorrow? Where you going with that mask I found? And I feel it, and I feel. When the dogs begin to smell her, will she smell alone?
Okay, so again, this sense of directionless, that mask I found, this kind of like a false sense of self. We talk about that unreal self because the narcissistic injuries, the injuries to the self, make people believe that or act as if they act as if. So when the dogs begin to smell her, will she smell alone? I have no idea what that alludes to. Your guess is as good as mine, but maybe that he feels there's kind of like a sense of being hunted, like a kind of a sense
hunted or hunter.
Yeah, when the dogs are hunting her, smelling her, will she smell alone? I have no idea what that alludes to, but you know what, callers? I'd like to get your opinion on that.
Or
okay?
you can write us at info@drjudywtf.com.
I'm stuck on that.
We'd love to get your input. I mean, the song was written in 1993.
Okay.
And I feel so much depends on the weather. So is it raining in your bedroom? And I see that these are the eyes of disarray. Would you even care?
Well, that's one thing, is that when we're so disconnected, we don't think people care, and maybe they don't because we're like off in another world. And so also, so much depends on the weather. There is no internal thermostat, so everything is dependent on outside conditions. And so the eyes of disarray is there's no sense of orientation here, no sense of consistency and balance.
Maybe even boundaries.
Yeah, maybe. Okay.
In the chorus, where are you going to tomorrow? Where are you going with that mask I found? And I feel, when the dogs begin to smell her, will she smell alone? When the dogs do find her, got time to wait for tomorrow to find it. When the dogs do find her, got time to wait for tomorrow to find it.
Well, somebody's hunting something down, and maybe there's a sense that that the person wants to be discovered or uncovered, and would like to be hunted down because there's a sense of isolation also.
There is a great sense of isolation here.
But I do want to hear about your opinions out there on this.
Please write us.
This dog thing, 'cause I'm not getting it. Okay.
Then we have the chorus again. Where are you going for tomorrow? Where are you going with that mask I found? And I feel. When the dogs begin to smell her, will she smell alone? And then lastly, when the dogs do find her, got time to wait for tomorrow to find it. When the dogs do find her, got time to wait for tomorrow to find it. So that is the song Plush by Stone Temple Pilots. And we're going to play the song now. And you actually have been viewing and watching and listening to Dr. Judy WTF, which, of course, is What the Freud here on ubnradionetwork.com. Thanks so much for viewing and listening. You can listen on Stitcher and iTunes. And you can write us, of course, at info@drjudywtf.com as well. So until next time, folks, thanks so much.